Down. Uh, all right. Did you hear the sound recording in progress?
I got it.
Okay. So we are now recording. My name is Karina Holosko. I am the editor of COVID Rebels 2021. And here today, it is my privilege to welcome one of our very talented poets, Betty Pierre. Betty is a Haitian American. She worked as a social worker, and she is an activist artist. Just a couple highlights. She worked to raise awareness about domestic violence, human trafficking, sexual assault, and runaway homeless youth. And right now she's working on an initiative to combat racism. How are you, Betty?
I'm great. Thank you, Karina.
Well, welcome very much. How did you get, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you grew up.
Well, I grew up here in Harlem, and Broadway and 125th Street. I went to grammar school, public school there, and spent most of my life there.
Wow. So you are born a native New Yorker.
I was born in Haiti. I came here when I was 6.
Okay.
And I always say I was born in Haiti, but raised in America.
Cool. All right. Well, that is, and I see that all these things that you've done. How did you get involved with domestic violence and human trafficking, things like that?
I've been in the child welfare field for about 32 years, and I was appointed to work as an assistant director for in the domestic violence area, because I had done some work with families and doing group work with domestic violence survivors. So I was appointed to work in that, to lead the office where we license domestic violence shelters and do work with survivors there. And also human trafficking. I was appointed to do that because just my work with children in foster care and my sensitivity to the cause and activism in general.
Wow. Wow. Now today I understand you are going to read us some poems.
Yes.
And what is the name of your first one?
The name of my first poem is going to be it's called actually 869,000.
Okay.
And that poem was written during the COVID when we were tabulating the numbers of deaths. So we had at that point arrived at the not quite the million mark in the United States, but we had already reached that number. So at that point, we were at 869,000 worldwide.
All right. You go, girl. Take it away.
Okay, can I stop a minute?
You want to stop? Okay,
Yeah.
I can pause you. I can pause you.
Pause.
We're being paused. All right, we stopped just for a second for Betty to get her things in order. Betty, what will you be reading for us first?
I'm going to first read the poem Robert E. Lee.
Okay.
And it's self-explanatory.
All right, I'm waiting.
They battled over old statues erected at glory for worship. Blood runs on the streets of the township. Shoot not to kill, the law enforcement edict is not a conundrum. They praise Robert E. Lee. The Confederate flag that was and no longer waves mocked freedom because we were all slaves and among human who is free. They see Robert E. Lee. Tired of the pitches to end healthcare and welfare and prejudice, like a bear that fled into a snare. The house we built us had an unconstitutional clause to defeat me. I speak about Robert E. Lee. Mass deception, even the wisest hesitate to speak when some take to the streets to shout Robert E. Lee. Mass deception, even the wisest hesitate to speak when some take to the street to shout Robert E. Lee. The poet cringes while dreaming of the unspoken plans of the old clan. Brothers in kind beat gangster plays while I read from another child who died last week so that we could praise Robert E. Lee. A father searches across to even the US federal highway for a daughter who died with cap and gown. Graduates shun a politically appointed, the never educated, a child, false Christian believer, decried, protesting voices to save Robert E. Lee. We can't figure out the election clause. We bite hate with wars, no longer speaking peace, while they shout Robert E. Lee. Songs glorifying a happy trigger at recess, a silver-barreled revolver roams the halls of the Roosevelt projects. Raise your hand for Robert E. Lee. Radios blast disparaging remarks, violence and hatred committed on a lark, all to praise Robert E. Lee. The devil gleefully sings to Serpentine, announcing the good book's new look. On Facebook, a friend requests from Robert E. Lee. That's the end of that.
Thank you. Oh, wow. That was beautiful. That was so beautiful. Oh my God.
Thank you.
I have tears. All right. It's hard to move on from that one, but what do you have for us next, Betty?
Next, I have two COVID poems that I'm going to be reading. The first poem was about we were at some point keeping the tally of how many deaths there were worldwide of COVID-19. And I was inspired to write a poem about that. And that was it's one of my signature poems. And, you know, for COVID, my first experience with COVID was on January 15th, 2020, where we lost a young man, not yet 30, who was very special to this family, to our family. I don't want to say too much about him, but because I don't have my permission from the others to talk about that, but that was the first touching experience that I had with the COVID, or the corona, as my daughter calls it. And, you know, it's been very difficult. And that was the catalyst in the beginning of these deaths for us. And we're slowly recovering. So I'm going to read that poem now.
All right.
It's called 869,000. At the 1 million mark, airwave reminders announce the day. There will be no parade at the Canyon of Heroes. What we see, do we see? What we see, do we see? A bugle will not tap the numbers surpassed, only a moment of silence. A line inscribed in the book of the middle passages, whimpers and muffled tears. What we hear, will we sow? Solemn funeral processions with no pallbearers. Even a cantor was rare. A few will sing songs of lament, no 21 gun salute. When we hear, will we know? When we hear, will we know? In the oceans, there echoes. A gasp may be heard for empathy. The whale will rise before escape the many. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Betty. Let me ask you a couple questions about the NYU. How did you get involved with the New York Writers Union?
It's very interesting. I was always looking for opportunities to showcase my work,
Mhm.
and I came across a pamphlet, or I went to the library. So I was always looking for, and I always encourage writers to look for opportunities to read your work. I went to the Nuremberg Library and I read some of my work. There was also the Harlem Book Fair one year, and I had my book there. And also I have a friend who's a photographer. He took a fantastic photo, which is still in the website, the National Writers Union website. So that's how I got involved, just searching for opportunities to meet with other writers, expand my creativity, read poems. And I've really enjoyed it. It's been many years now.
And Betty, you said you wrote another book?
Yes, I have my first book of poems in 2007. The name is Babel. It
Babel?
talks about speaking, while we speak other languages, it's important to be able to communicate. So the book is focused on that, and that's done through poetry.
Sorry about the ringing.
Mhm.
You know, we're at home. And where can people get Babel?
They can order it on Amazon. They can also go to Barnes and Noble, any bookstore, and ask for it. It's not on the shelf, but they can order it and it'll come. And that's the best way. What I ask everyone who buys the book is to do a review. Read the work, tell us what you felt about it. And that does a great deal for writers when they have reviews of their work.
Now, do you have a website where people can get in contact with you?
I don't have a website, but I'm on all the social media platforms, LinkedIn,
Okay.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I have a page on Facebook, which is called Words and Worlds, which is open to the public. Words and Worlds.
Words and Worlds by Betty Pierre. So you can look that
Yes.
up, Words and Worlds. Got it.
And I post some of the pieces that are in progress on that and ask for people to comment.
Wow, Betty. Well, I would like to thank you very much for spending some time with us today. We're very honored to have you.
Okay.
And you can find Betty in the Anthology and also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can contact her and ask her anything you like. So thank you, Betty.
Great. Thank you. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody.